Good afternoon, everyone. This is your boy Vulcan Vugan back with another video today, and once again we are doing something completely out of the blue. So normally I will just make any random video, and today is no different. So let's talk about what today's topic is. Today's topic is the Deora 3 and why it's a good successor, and why everybody who says otherwise is wrong. Disclaimer beforehand, before you leave a dislike, a hate comment, or a death threat, let me start off by saying that I do not like Deora 3. I think that the Deora 3 could have been better, but it does not deserve the hate that it gets. Alright, point number one for why Deora 3 is a good Deora. And we'll start off this point by asking a question, which is, what makes a Deora? Or rather, what design language says that this car would be a Deora? There are 5 main things that I've looked at when I was studying through the original Deora and Deora 2, and even the tuned Deora if you want to get to that kind of wacky, random shit. The 5 main things that I've noticed with Deoras that make up the design language. Number 1, surfboards have to be on the truck bed. If they're not, then it's not a Deora. Number 2, the cab has to be over the front axle, like a Volkswagen microbus, or like a Dodge van, or even a Toyota Previa. Now, while they're not minivans, they all share the same cab over axle deal. Number 3, it has to be mid or rear engine. Whether or not it's an electric engine or a combustion engine, it has to be in the middle or the back of the car. Number 4, it has to be radical, in the sense that the design has to catch the attention of children, which is the main demographic that Hot Wheels aims for, as is with every fantasy casting that Hot Wheels aims to put out. Number 5 being that in order for it to be classified as a Deora, it has to fit a beach vibe. Whether that is Florida beach vibe, California beach vibe, or if you're a masochist, to go to Mississippi. So with those 5 criteria in mind, let's compare the 3 Deoras. Deora 1, it has surfboards, it has cab over axle, it has a rear engine, it has radical design, and it has a beach vibe. It fits all 5 of the criteria. Deora 2, it has surfboards, it has cab over axle, it has rear engine, it has radical design, and it has beach vibe. It fits all 5. Deora 3, it has surfboards. While not on the truck bed itself, it has them in the truck bed, not on it. It has cab over axle, it has front and rear engine, it has radical design, and it has an extreme level of beach design, more so than the other 2. It literally has beach lawn chairs for the seats, and it has a bike that you're supposed to take to go to the beach and ride around. So overall, Deora 3 fits at least 4 out of 5 of these. Some of these may be a bit more iffy, like the surfboards not being on the truck bed itself, but rather mounted in a different way. But it does fit. The second point involves the timeline of the Deora series. Deora 1 through 3, and if you want to get funky with it, you include the tuned Deora in there as well. That one's pretty funny. So let's talk about what the Deora represents to me. This is my opinion, but I believe that every Deora represents a different time period in which it was made. The Deora 1 represents 1960s, specifically the late 1960s, when car companies were making radical car concepts to try to gain the attention of the public so that they could sell more cars. They did this with the Dodge Charger 2. They did this with the Dodge Deora. They did this with a bunch of different concept cars. And that's what it was designed to do. It was designed to catch the attention of people around. Hot Wheels came in, put surfboards on the back of it, made it into a casting, and then released it in the original 16 Redline. So with that in mind, we can safely assume that the Deora is almost like a time capsule for that design trend when they were trying to make concept cars for that time period. The Deora 2 continues this trend by focusing on utilizing technology and design trends that happened in the early 2000s. Specifically, when AutoCAD was being used to make cars in the early 90s to the late 2000s, everybody wanted to make a car that had swooping lines, smooth curves, and essentially looked like a blob. A lot of cars did this. There was the Toyota Celica, not the last generation, one of the other ones. The Toyota Supra Mark IV, the Dodge Neon, the Honda Civic. All these cars had blobby, fat looks to them. And that's what the Deora 2 did. It took the Ford Taurus wagon of the time, the rear end of it, slapped it on the front, turned it into a truck, and there you go. It represents that time period of the early 2000s, late 90s, when cars were becoming more rounded and more insane to look at, and into some retrospective, a bit ugly. Now, the Deora 3 completely skips over all design language in everything that the Deora 2 represents, in the sense that the Deora 3 was made around a different time, and it's not supposed to encapsulate the same ideas that the Deora 2 made. It's supposed to encapsulate the same ideals that the original Deora made. And I'll start off by talking about the current car trend that it represents. The current car trend, or one that's been going on for at least 5 years now, is that car companies have been once again vying for the attention of the public by making radical and insane concept cars to push out and get into the electric market. Volkswagen has been doing this by remaking the Volkswagen bus called the ID Buzz, or the ID.3, which is just a smaller electric Golf, or the ID Buggy, which is supposed to be a Myers Manx but electric. The point is that all these car companies have been doing this to gain the attention of the viewers, of the people online, the public, whatever you want to call them, which is exactly the same thing that people did back in the 1960s to try to get the people's view. They make radical concept cars to sell their regular lineup. Because as we can tell, not many of these radical electric cars have become real production cars. The only ones that have are crossover SUVs like the Mustang Mach-E, and I'll be honest, I don't think anybody likes that except for 40-year-old white women. The Deora 3 encapsulates this idea because not only does it use the name of its predecessor, but it's also a radical electric car designed to cater to a specific type of person. Now granted, this is a toy, so it's only supposed to represent that through implied reference, not actual reference. I don't think anybody would buy this if it was real, because it is that impractical, as is most Hot Wheels castings. So to recap, the Deora 1 represents radical 1960s car designs that are meant to grab the attention of literally anybody walking by or viewing it in magazines, watching the show on TV, etc. It's meant to catch the attention so that Dodge could sell more cars. The Deora 2 does the same thing, but for the early 2000s and for Hot Wheels. It was designed to be a radical design that fits the time period and at the same time grabs the attention of all the viewers. The Deora 3 is supposed to be the same exact thing as Deora 1, but once again, for Hot Wheels and for electric cars. Now I know that this video is going to be very divisive and that people are probably going to hate my opinion on this subject, but once again, this is all my opinion. I'm not a big fan of the Deora 3 in terms of a car. I'm not a big fan of it in terms of design. I think that there are a lot of problems with it, but I still do think that the hate is undeserved. A lot of people hated the Mark V Supra. A lot of people are hating on the new WRX. I don't like any of those, but the hate is still undeserved. So leave your opinions down in the comments section. I'm not going to argue this anymore. I've literally had this argument 5 fucking times in the past month with various peoples on Discord. This is Vulcan, signing out, bitch.